Good morning. You may feel alone today. Maybe you've been through seasons where people walked away, where friendships faded, or where you never quite fit in. You look around and it seems like everyone else has their circle, their people, their support. But here you are feeling left out, wondering if something is wrong with you. Let me tell you something, just because people have left doesn't mean you're alone. Just because you don't have a crowd around you doesn't mean you're forgotten. Sometimes the reason people walked away is because God is setting you apart for something greater. It's easy to feel alone when you look around and don't see the support you wish you had. Maybe you've had people walk out of your life. Maybe you've been the one always reaching out, always making the effort, always being there for others, but when you needed someone, there was no one in sight. It can be discouraging. It can make you question your worth. It can make you wonder, am I always going to be by myself? Asterisk. But let me remind you, today you are never truly alone. People may leave, but God never does. Friends may be absent, but His presence is always near. You might not always feel it, but He is closer than you realize. The Bible tells us in Deuteronomy 31:6, asterisk, 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 He will never leave you nor forsake you. Asterisk, that means in your quiet moments, in your lowest valleys, when it feels like no one understands what you're going through, God is right there, walking with you, guiding you, and preparing something greater for your future. Sometimes we equate being alone with being forgotten. We think that because people aren't calling, inviting, or including us, we must not matter. But let me tell you, some of the greatest seasons of growth happen in solitude. When it's just you and God, that's when He speaks the loudest. That's when He heals the wounds you didn't even realize were there. That's when He shows you that your worth isn't tied to the number of people in your life, but to the one who created you. You see, we live in a world that measures worth by how many friends you have, how many followers you gain, how many people want to be around you. But that's not how God works. He's not impressed by numbers. He's looking at your heart. Some of the strongest, most successful, most faith-filled people had seasons where they walked alone. Think about Joseph in the Bible, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into prison. It looked like he had nobody. But in every single chapter of his life, the Bible says asterisk, and the Lord was with Joseph, asterisk. The Lord was with him in the pit. The Lord was with him in the prison. And because Joseph stayed faithful, because he didn't let loneliness convince him that he was forgotten, God took him from isolation to elevation. He went from being alone to being second in command over an entire nation. That's what God can do. If you stay faithful, if you trust that He's with you, even when you don't see it, He will take what feels like a lonely season and turn it into a launching season. You may feel alone right now, but that doesn't mean you're abandoned. You may feel forgotten by people, but you are remembered by God. And when the time is right, He will send the right people into your life, and not just anybody, but people who align with your purpose, who love you for who you are, and who will walk with you in faith. So don't let loneliness lie to you. Don't let it convince you that you're not enough. You are never truly alone. The God who created you, the one who formed you in your mother's womb, the one who called you by name, He is with you, He is for you, and He is leading you into something greater. Keep your faith strong. Keep your hope alive, because the best is yet to come. If you find yourself in a season of loneliness, feeling like you don't have the friendships or relationships you desire, I want to remind you today, you are not alone, you are not forgotten, and you are not less valuable because of this season. Maybe God has set you apart, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Maybe He is using this time to strengthen you, to heal you, to help you grow into the person you were always meant to be. Instead of looking at what's missing, focus on what's being built within you. Your worth is not measured by the number of friends you have. It's not determined by how many people approve of you, invite you, or include you. Your worth was decided by the one who created you. And He says, you are enough. You are valuable. You are loved. The right people will come at the right time. You don't have to chase after them, beg for their attention, or force yourself to fit in. Trust the process. When the time is right, God will align you with the right friendships, the right relationships, and the right community people who see you, appreciate you, and support your purpose. Until then, don't waste this season wishing it away. Use it to grow. Use it to heal. Use it to step into your calling. And most importantly, remember, you are already whole, you are already loved, and you are already enough. Rejection can be one of the hardest things to experience. It cuts deep. Maybe you were left out of a friendship group. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe someone you trusted turned their back on you. When that happens, it's easy to feel hurt, confused, or even bitter. You start asking, why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? But what if I told you that rejection is often God's protection? What if the very thing that broke your heart was actually saving you from something you couldn't see? You see, God knows what's ahead. He sees things we don't see. He hears conversations we weren't a part of. He knows the motives of people's hearts, even when they seem good on the surface. Sometimes, when He removes someone from your life, it's not because you're unworthy. It's because He's keeping you from something that would have hurt you even more down the road. Think about it. There have been times when you prayed for a door to open, but it never did. Or maybe you were excited about a friendship or relationship, but it suddenly fell apart. At the moment, it felt like rejection, but looking back, you can see that it was actually protection. Maybe that person wasn't who you thought they were. Maybe that opportunity would have drained you instead of blessed you. Maybe God was saving you from heartbreak, disappointment, or even danger. One of the greatest examples of this is Jesus Himself. He was betrayed by Judas, of His own disciples, someone who walked with Him, listened to Him, and shared life with Him. Jesus could have been bitter. He could have held a grudge, but He understood something powerful. Judas's betrayal was part of the plan. Without Judas, Jesus wouldn't have fulfilled His destiny. The rejection, the betrayal, it wasn't the end of His story. It was the beginning of something greater. That's the perspective we have to have. The people who walked away weren't meant to go where God is taking you. The friendships that ended weren't meant to last forever. Instead of seeing rejection as a loss, start seeing it as a redirection. God is shifting you, positioning you, and preparing you for something better. It's easy to take rejection personally. You start wondering if you're not likable, not lovable, not enough. But let me tell you, you are not rejected by God. People may have walked away, but He never will. People may not have chosen you, but He already has. Your value doesn't decrease just because someone failed to see it. So instead of mourning what left, start trusting that God has something better ahead. That friendship that fell apart, God has someone better suited for you. That job that didn't work out, God has something greater lined up. That person who rejected you, God is removing the wrong people so He can bring in the right ones. One day, you're going to look back and thank God for the doors that didn't open. You're going to realize that the rejection that hurt you so deeply was actually a setup for your breakthrough. God doesn't close a door without a reason. He doesn't remove people from your life unless it's for your good. So today, let go of the pain, release the disappointment, and trust that God knows exactly what He's doing. What you see as rejection is actually divine protection. And if you stay faithful, if you keep trusting, He will bring the right people, the right opportunities, and the right blessings into your life at just the right time. It's easy to feel like you don't belong. Maybe you've never quite fit in with the crowd. Maybe you've watched others form friendships, build relationships, and create circles where you were never included. You try to be kind, you try to connect, but no matter how hard you try, you still feel like an outsider. But let me tell you something today. You are not left out, you are set apart. God didn't forget about you. He didn't overlook you. He didn't make a mistake when He created you the way He did. If it feels like you're different, it's because you are. If it feels like you don't fit in, it's because you were never meant to. God has placed something unique inside of you. He has called you to something greater than blending in. The world may make you feel like being different is a bad thing, but in God's kingdom, being set apart is a blessing. Some of the greatest people in history, leaders, visionaries, world changers, went through seasons where they felt alone, misunderstood, and out of place. But what they didn't realize at the time was that God was preparing them for something bigger than they could see. He has something specific for you. And sometimes that means removing distraction. When God has a purpose for your life, He won't always let you walk the same path as everyone else. He won't always let you settle into just any group, any relationship, or any environments, pulling you away from certain crowds and keeping you from places that would have hindered your calling. Think about David in the Bible. Before he was king, before he defeated Goliath, before anyone knew his name, David was out in the fields tending sheep. He was alone, unnoticed, seemingly forgotten. His brothers were on the battlefield. His family didn't see him as important. And when the prophet Samuel came looking for the next king, David wasn't even invited into the room. But just because he wasn't invited didn't mean he wasn't chosen. Just because people overlooked him didn't mean God did. David wasn't left out, was set apart. And in the right time, God called him out of obscurity and into His purpose. The same is true for you. You may not be in the crowd right now. You may feel hidden, unseen, or excluded, but that doesn't mean God has forgotten you. He's preparing you, shaping you, and positioning you for something that's bigger than what you can see. One of the biggest mistakes we can make is trying to force ourselves into places God never intended us to be. We try to fit in, we try to gain approval, we try to be accepted by people who were never meant to walk with us. But when God sets you apart, He won't let you settle. You might try to conform, but something inside you will always feel off. You might try to be like everyone else, but deep down, you'll know you're called to something greater. Don't be discouraged if doors don't open. Don't be upset when certain people don't include you. What if God is keeping you from settling for something small because He has something extraordinary ahead? When the time is right, God will bring the right people into your life, people who appreciate you, who see the gifts inside of you, and who encourage your purpose. You won't have to chase them, beg for their approval, or change who you are just to be accepted. The right people will recognize what God has placed inside of you, and they will love you for who you truly are. So instead of feeling discouraged about who isn't there, start preparing for who is coming. Instead of worrying about who left, start thanking God for who's about to enter your life. You may not understand why you've had to walk alone in certain seasons. You may not see why certain friendships never worked out, but trust that God's plan is bigger than your present reality. You are not forgotten. You are not left behind. You are not an afterthought. You are chosen. You are set apart. You are being prepared for something greater. And when the time is right, everything will fall into place. When you find yourself alone, without close friends, without the company you once had, it's easy to feel like something is wrong. You may wonder, why am I in this season? Why does it seem like I'm by myself, asterisk? But what if I told you that this time of solitude isn't a punishment, it's preparation? What if this season isn't about what you've lost, but about what you're about to gain? This is not wasted time. This is not a delay. This is not a season of emptiness. It's a season of growth. Too often we spend so much energy longing for companionship that we miss the opportunity that solitude brings. This time alone is not meant to break you. It's meant to build you. Instead of focusing on what's missing, ask yourself, what can I do with this time? How can I become stronger, wiser, and better prepared for what's ahead? Growth happens in the quiet seasons. Look at nature. A seed doesn't grow when it's exposed to everything around it. It grows when it's planted in the dark, buried in the soil, hidden from view. It may look like nothing is happening, but deep beneath the surface, the roots are spreading, the foundation is strengthening, and soon enough, that seed will break through the ground and rise higher than before. That's what God is doing in your life. You may feel hidden right now. You may feel unseen. But this is your season to grow, to strengthen your roots, to build the foundation that will support the future God has planned for you. Think about Moses before he led the Israelites out of Egypt. He spent 40 years in the wilderness. Think about Joseph before he became second in command of Egypt. He spent years in prison. These were times of preparation, of growth, of deepening faith. Their seasons of isolation weren't wasted. They were necessary for where God was taking them. And the same is true for you. Maybe this is the time to develop your skills, to invest in your passions, to work on the dreams that God placed in your heart. Maybe you've been so busy trying to fit in, trying to keep up with everyone else, that you haven't had time to focus on what truly matters. Use this time to become who you were created to be. If you've always wanted to write, start writing. If you've dreamed of starting a business, begin laying the foundation. If you feel a calling to serve others, find a way to do it. If you want to strengthen your faith, spend time in prayer, in Scripture, in seeking God's presence. Don't wait for the perfect season to start. This is your season. Some seasons of solitude are not just about growth, but about healing. Maybe you've been carrying wounds from past friendships, past relationships, past disappointments. Maybe you've been so busy trying to fill your life with people that you haven't taken the time to truly heal. This is your moment to let go, to forgive, to release the burdens that have been weighing you down. Healing happens in stillness. When everything is quiet, that's when God begins to mend the broken places in your heart. You may not see it now, but God is getting ready to open doors for you. He's getting ready to bring the right people into your life. He's setting things in motion that you can't even imagine. But when those doors open, will you be ready? This time is not about waiting, it's about preparing. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle the blessings that are coming your way. If you want strong, healthy friendships in the future, become the kind of person who can be a strong, healthy friend. If you want great opportunities, develop the skills and wisdom to walk through those doors when they open. If you want to step into your purpose, start aligning your life with the person God has called you to be. Instead of feeling discouraged, embrace this season with faith. See it for what it is, time of transformation, a time of preparation, a time of becoming. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are growing. You are being refined. You are getting ready for something greater. And when the time is right, when God knows you're ready, He will bring the right people, the right opportunities, and the right blessings into your life until the news this time to grow. There may be times in life when you feel like you're walking alone. You look around and see others surrounded by friendships, relationships, and support systems while you wonder, where are my people? Why don't I have the connections I desire? Maybe you've been the one who always shows up for others, but when you needed someone, no one was there. Maybe you've experienced betrayal, rejection, or simply outgrown relationships that no longer align with who you are becoming. It can be discouraging. It can feel like something is wrong with you. But let me remind you today, the right people will come in the right season. You don't have to chase them, force them, or beg to be accepted. When the time is right, God will send the right people into your life, people who love you for who you are, who support your growth, and who align with your purpose. Just like nature goes through seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, our lives go through seasons as well. Some people were meant to be with you for only a season. They played their part, they helped you grow, and now their role in your story has ended. That doesn't mean their presence wasn't important, but it does mean you have to trust God when certain people leave. Some friendships and relationships were never meant to last forever. We sometimes hold on too tightly to people who were only meant to be temporary. We resist change, thinking that if someone walks away, it must mean something is wrong with us. But what if God is removing the wrong people so that He can bring in the right ones? What if the people who left were actually holding you back from the next level of your destiny? Instead of fighting for people who are meant to leave, start preparing for the ones who are meant to stay. One of the biggest mistakes we can make is trying to hold on to people who no longer belong in our lives. Sometimes we try so hard to make people love us, appreciate us, or stay with us that we settle for relationships that are unhealthy, one-sided, or draining. But the truth is, when you force something that isn't meant for you, it will never bring peace. A friendship shouldn't make you feel like you have to prove your worth. A relationship shouldn't make you feel like you have to change who you are just to be accepted. The right people will love you as you are, support your dreams, and bring joy into your life. They won't require you to shrink yourself, lower your standards, or compromise your values. If you have to beg someone to stay in your life, they aren't meant to be there. If you have to constantly chase after them, they aren't running toward the same future as you. And if they don't see your worth now, nothing you do will change their perspective. It's easy to feel like you're behind, like you should already have the friendships, the relationships, and the community that others seem to have. But the truth is, God's timing is perfect. He knows when you're ready. He knows when the right people will enter your life. And if they haven't arrived yet, it's not because He has forgotten you, it's because He's preparing you and them for the right moment. There are some people you haven't met yet who will change your life for the better. There are friends who will encourage you, uplift you, and help you grow into the person you were created to be. There are relationships that will be filled with love, trust, and peace, but those relationships will only come at the right time. Just like a flower doesn't bloom before its season, the right relationships won't come until you're ready to receive them. You may not understand the delay, but God does. He sees what you can't see. He knows what you don't know, and when the time is right, everything will fall into place. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, use this season to become the best version of yourself. Work on your character, your faith, your dreams, and your purpose. Become the kind of person who attracts the right people, not by chasing them, but by simply being who God created you to be. If you want loyal friends, be a loyal person. If you want a healthy relationship, work on healing from past hurts. If you want to be surrounded by people who inspire you, become someone who inspires others. God isn't just preparing the right people for you, He's also preparing you for them. When God sends the right people into your life, you won't have to wonder if they belong. They will come with peace, not confusion. They will add to your life, not drain from it. They will encourage your faith, not pull you away from it. You won't have to force them to stay because they will want to be there. You won't have to chase them because they will be running in the same direction as you. And when you look back, you'll realize that every lonely season, every closed door, and every person who walked away was simply leading you to something better. So don't lose heart. Don't get discouraged. The right people will come. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but when the time is right, God will send them into your life. And when He does, you'll understand why the wait was worth it. In today's world, it's easy to feel like your value is tied to how many friends you have. Social media makes it seem like the more connections, likes, and followers you have, the more important you are. If you're constantly surrounded by people, if you always have someone to call, if your weekends are full of plans, then you must be doing something right. But what happens when your phone is silent? What happens when invitations stop coming? What happens when the people you thought would always be there slowly fade away? Does that mean you're not enough? Does that mean something is wrong with you? Let me remind you today, your worth is not measured by the number of friends you have. It's not about how many people like you, how many text messages you receive, or how many people want to be around you. Your worth was determined the moment God created you, and nothing, no amount of friendships or lack thereof can change that. People will come and go. Friendships will shift. There will be seasons in your life when you're surrounded by others, and there will be seasons when you walk alone. But if your identity is wrapped up in the approval of people, then every time someone leaves, you'll feel like a part of you is missing. Your worth has nothing to do with who stays or who goes. It has everything to do with the fact that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, created with purpose, loved beyond measure, and valuable just as you are. Think about some of the most influential people in history, visionaries, leaders, world changers. Many of them spent seasons in solitude, misunderstood, rejected by those around them. They didn't have large crowds of people constantly affirming them, but that didn't stop them from fulfilling their purpose. They understood that their value didn't come from who was with them, but from who they were. It's not about having a large circle. It's about having the right people in your life. One real, loyal, and supportive friend is more valuable than 100 acquaintances who only show up when it's convenient. Some people collect friendships like trophies, believing that more equals better. But how many of those so-called friends would actually stand by them when things get tough? How many of them would pray for them, encourage them, and speak life into them? It's better to have one or two true friends who genuinely care than to be surrounded by a crowd that disappears when you need them most. Just because you're alone right now does not mean you're less valuable. It does not mean you're not lovable or not worthy of companionship. Some of the most powerful seasons of growth happen in solitude. Maybe God is using this time to strengthen you, to teach you to stand on your own, to remind you that your joy, your peace, and your confidence should not depend on external validation. You don't need a room full of people to feel complete. You are already whole. Sometimes we chase friendships just to fill a void, seeking validation from others because we don't fully believe in our own worth. But when you realize that you are already enough, you stop seeking approval. You stop looking to others to complete you, and instead you embrace the season you're in, knowing that you lack nothing. Instead of focusing on how many friends you have, focus on the kind of person you are. Are you kind? Are you supportive? Do you bring joy and encouragement into the lives of others? Because when you live with love, integrity, and purpose, the right people will be drawn to you naturally. Friendships built on authenticity will always last longer than those built on social convenience. When you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you won't have to chase relationships. The right ones will find you. Your worth does not fluctuate based on who stays or who walks away. You are valuable when you are surrounded by friends, and you are valuable when you are standing alone. Stop believing the lie that says you need to have a certain number of people around you to be important. You are important the moment God breathed life into you. One day, the right people will commend you in loving, uplifting relationships that are meant for you. But until then, stand firm in knowing that you are enough exactly as you are.